Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to build an interaction system for a first-person game in Unreal Engine. But first, what exactly is an interaction system? Interaction system is one of the core and powerful gameplay mechanics in many games. This system allows players to interact with some specific actor in the game world, such as picking up items, interacting with environment, or talking to NPC. So by implementing a system like this, we can easily to expand our games with some new feature or some new interaction behaviors. Now, here's a quick look at the final result of this tutorial. As you can see, we walk up to an object and a prop will pop up. Then we can press the interact button, and through the LineTrace, our character can perform an action. In this case, we are opening and closing the door. So by the end of this tutorial, you will build a complete interaction system for your game. And during this tutorial, you will learn how to set up input actions by using enhanced input system. You will learn how to detect an object with a line trace. You will learn how to build an interface and create a base actor for those interactable items. After those steps, you will learn how to connect and finish the interaction logic inside the player BP. And also, you will learn how to create a child actor from your base actor to expand more interaction types. And finally, since we already know all the steps, you will learn how to organize your code into a reusable actor component. So, let's get started. Step 1, create project and input action. I will be using the first-person template from the engine for our tutorial. So to make sure everyone on the same page, let's get all the project setups. If you started with a blank project, here's what you need to do. In the content browser, you're gonna click the add button, and from the drop-down menu, you will find and select the add feature or content pack button. This button will open a new window and show you all the template that you can add it into your project. So we are going to add the first person one into our project. Next, we're gonna click the content browser and right click to create a new folder called tutorial. This tutorial folder will store all the assets that we created for the interaction system. Also, we can right click the tutorial folder and then select the set color button. This button will pop up a new window called color picker. We can set up our customer color for our folder. Then we're gonna go inside the tutorial folder and create two new folders called blueprints and maps. These two folders will store our blueprints and our maps. Next, we're gonna create our text level. We need to go to the file menu and then click the new level. Then we're gonna select the basic and click create. And you will see our level was changed. In order to save the level, we're gonna go back to the file menu and then click the set current level. And in this case, I will save my level inside the maps folder and rename it maps interaction. One more thing to do, if we want to open this project next time with this level, we need to go to the edit menu and select the project setting. Inside the project setting, you can see a maps and mode section, and click inside this section. You can set up the default map for your project. In this case, we will search our map called map interaction, and then we will set those two settings as the map interaction. Once the project finished setup, we will be ready to start the next one, create inputs. Now go back to the tutorial folder. We're gonna right click and then create a new folder called inputs, and go inside the inputs folder. We're gonna create a new folder called input actions. This folder will save all the action that we created for our input mapping content. And then we right click and find out the input section, and then we're gonna select the input actions, and I will rename it as IA interact. After we create it, we're gonna double click and open the input action access. And then we need to double check the value type as the boolean. And also, we need to set up the triggers for this input action. In this case, we're gonna click the add button and then select the pressed. Once this have done, what we need to do is go back to the editor and then find the input mapping content. The easiest way to find the content is go to the first person folder and then go to the BP folder and go inside the BP first person character. You can see we already have some logics inside this blueprint, and you will find a node called app mapping content, and we can click the mapping content here. Click the search button and you will see the input mapping content. And we're gonna open the mapping session and then click an add button, and then we can add our new IA, which is the new input action. So in this case, we're gonna set up the input action as a E key to trigger the input action. After that, we can go back our first person character BP and right click, search IA interact. You can see two things. First one, get IA interact, and the second one is get IA interact event. So we're gonna need the IA interact event later. Step 2, LineTrace part. First, we need a way for the player to detect what they are looking at. For this, we will use a node called LineTrace by channel, also known as a raycast. Raycast is very simple. The engine will shoot an invisible line from the start point in a direction. If this invisible line collabs with some actor or some objects, it will return a hit information for us. So that is the foundation of our interaction system. And no matter if we are working in first person or third person project, the start point of the line trace always be the main camera. This makes sure the line is cast exactly from the player's perspective, which means what the camera seen is what the player can interact with. First, right-click the empty place in the event graph and search for the line trace by channel node and add it. For the start input, we will try to get the first person camera first and then search for the get world location to return our star position for the line trace. And then we copy those and also copy the first person camera. And the first person camera, we will use it for get the forward vector for this line trace. And then we multiply a value, a distance. So here we will convert the vector to float and set up as 500. And after that, we promote it as a variable. I will rename this variable as line trace layers. So after that, we can add it into our camera location in order to find out the end position for this line trace. For the debug type input, we will set it as a for duration so that we can visualize the line trace when testing. And then we connect the IA interact event to the line trace by channel. Now we can go back to our level and go to the level photo tab, and we can place a cube inside our level. And then hit play. When we press E, you should see a red or green debug line shooting forward from the camera. That lets us confirm the line trace is actually working. Back to the BP, we can see the function of line trace by channel give us two outputs. First, Boolean return value. This one should be easy. Just tell us the line trace hit something or not. Second, our hit. It returns a hit value structure for us. We can extract it by using the break node. You will see tons of information that can be used for the further logic, such as hit information, hit actor, hit normal, and so on. So what we can do for those output, let's print the hit object name for testing. We can use the break node and get the hit actor and use the get display name, and we can find out the print screen node and connect the display name to the instint. Now you can run the game. Every time you trigger the line trace, the game will print a debug message and show the name of the hit object. Step 3, interface. Now we can detect which object the player is looking at. We need an actual way to communicate with those objects. This is where an interface comes in. Before we build it, let's take a moment to understand what an interface is. An interface in Unreal is like a bridge or communication layer. It defines a function name, but not the actual implementation. That means we can send a message to any actor without needing to know which kind of or what kind of actor it is. The actor itself to define or decide how to respond this message. So why do we need this? First, the interface can keep our blueprint clean. We don't need to cast to every possible object type. And second, it is flexible. Different actors can implement the same interface and provide their own unique behavior. Third, the interface can make our system very easy to extend. If we're adding a new interactable item, we don't need to change anything inside our player BP or our actor component later. Now back to the actor and let's create an interface. In the content browser, we will right click and find the blueprint and then find the blueprint interface. And we will click it and name this interface as a BPI Interact. Double click and open it. We can see the interface window already create a new function. We can just directly rename it as onInteract. We can notice that the interface window do not have an event graph. We can only define a function name and its input or output. For now, we just keep everything empty. One more, we're going to create a function called Extendable. And this function will define the current actor is interactable or not. So we need to add a new output and rename it is interactable. And this output is a boolean. And we can save it, return to the editor. Any actor we want to be interactable, such as a door or a light, can be implement this interface. But instead of attaching it to each one right away, I prefer to create a base interactable actor for them. So we right click and create a new actor and name it BP interactable base. Then we can go inside this BP. We can see the top of this window. We can click the class setting and find the interface section. You can see here. And we're gonna click the add button and search for our interface. And here I can type BPI and you can easily to find our interface interact. So after we added this interface, you will see the My Blueprint window and we will have a new section called interface and it will show us the function that we created before. And now we can double click the isInteractable function and set this actor as isInteractable. And back to the event graph, we can double click the onInteract event. And in this case, we will just directly print a debug message for testing. Before we place this actor into our level, we can add a cube component to visualize our actor. After that, we will add a sphere collision to check the player is close to current actor or not. If the player get close to this sphere collision, we will make a prompt to say press E to interact. Now we can go back to our content browser and create a new folder called UI and then go inside it and we right click and go to the UI section and find out the widget blueprint. We can click the widget blueprint and then create a new widget called WBP and interact prompt. And next we double click go inside the WBP and then we first set the view screen to deserve and then we can search the canvas panel and we add inside this BP and then we search the background blur component and add inside to the hierarchy. And next we're gonna set the text blocks component and In this case, we will change the text value to press E to interact. After that, we can go back to the background blur and we can try to click the size to content to let the text fill the background blur. And lastly, we will set the blur strength to 10. Now we can compile and save and go back to the Extendable base blueprint. We can go to the components window and search for the widget. We will add this widget component into our BP and then rename it UI Interact Prompt. After that, you can go to the left and you will see the user interface section. And first we need to set the space into screen, and then we can go to the class and we will search for our WBP Interact Prompt. And then we can first go back to the level and test it. You can see the interact port already show on our level. Finally, we can go back to our Extendable base blueprint. And first we're gonna just change a bit the height of the widget. And we can have a look for the widget position. Right now it's perfect. And then we can go back to the blueprint and finish the logic of the interact prompt. So first we're gonna go to the widget and then unclick the visible variable. And next we're gonna go to the sphere component and click the on component begin overlap event, and also click the on component end overlap event. And right now we're gonna just try to cut to the character to make sure this sphere collision is overlapped with our player character. And then if this condition is success, we're gonna just visualize our UI. So in this case, I will drag the UI interact prompt out and then set the visibility. So if we begin overlap, we will set the visibility as true. On the other side, we will set the visibility is false. Now, the last part of this step, we need to compile and save and go back to the level for testing. You can see the interact prompt is not a perfect position. So we need to go back to our blueprint and we need to find the widgets component and then do some setting for the screen size. And now back to the level, you can see the prop position is perfect. Step 4, player logic part. So at this point, we already have two pieces inside our project. The first, player can detect the object via LineTrace. The second, an interface that defines how actors can respond to the interaction. So now back to the editor. It's time to connect them inside our player BP to make this work. Firstly, we will delete the part to print our hit actor name. Then we will drag the hit actor out and search for the Extendable function from our interface. So we will click the message one and we connect with the LineTrace by channel. This function will return a boolean to tell us this current hit actor is interable or not. So in this case, if we get the hit actor is not interable, we will try to use the print string to show a debug message inside the game. And I will set up a red color for this debug message. And then next, if this hit actor is interable and return true, we will try to send a message to the interface by using the onInteract function. Compile and save. We can go back to the level. So the first one, it is the cube from our level photo tab. It is not interable. You can see the left of the screen. And the next one, you can see the interact prompt pop up and the debug message will show onInteract. We can go back to the Extendable base blueprint. We will see the debug message is printed from the onInteract function. Now we can go to the first person character and add a breakpoint on interact message function. And we can try to press E again you can see the breakpoint stop, and then we can click the next step, and you will see the message will send to the interactable base blueprint, and then it will call the print string function. So it will be the whole communication between the player character and the interaction base actor. Step 5, child actor part. So in step 3, we already create our interactable base actor with an interface, and also implement some shared behavior like interaction prompt. So now it's time to create our first child actor from the base actor. In this tutorial, we will create a door that can be opened and closed when the player interacts with. Back to the content browser, we can right-click on the BP interactable base and then select the Create Child Blueprint class button. And then we name this new actor as BP door. Double-click and open the BP door. You will see the BP door will not contain the cube component from the interactable base actor. So you need to go back to the interactable base blueprint and delete the cube component first. Now we can go to the components window and add a static mesh, and we will rename it as door. And the next one, we will create another one static mesh to rename it as a door frame. And then we go to the details window and then set those static mesh as a door frame and door. Next, we will try to set the door position to match the door frame. In order to open the door, you can see we need to rotate the door with the Z-axis. Now we can go back to the event graph and take the door component out and search for the set relative rotation. And then we will split the new rotation to 3 pin. So what we need to do is change the third pin, which is the rotation Z. Then we can search the love function. This love function can help us to animate the door. We can set the B as 90, which is the 90 degree of the door. And then we need to give the input for the alpha. So in this case, I will create a new timeline and I will rename it as timeline door rotate. And then we double click, go into the timeline. I will first change the length of the timeline to 0.3, and then I will add a new flow track and rename it as alpha. And then we will go to the graph and right click to create 2 keys. The first one we will set it as 0 and 0, and the second one we will set it as 0.3 and 1. We can use these 2 buttons to make this graph easy to read. And then we can select those 2 keys and change it to auto and make this curve more smooth. Now we can go back to the event graph and we need to connect the alpha from the timeline to the love function. And we go to the interface section and double click the on interact function. In order to open the door and close the door, we need to use a node called flip-flop, and we can search it. For the A, we will connect with the plate input, and then we will connect the update with the set relative rotation. Then for the B, we will connect with the reverse. So it will be all of the logic for opening the door and closing the door. Now we can back to the map and place the actor into our level for testing. As you can see, our door is not response our own interact function. So what's the problem here? In order to fix this problem, you need to go back to the door BP and then find the static mesh of this door. And then you can see inside this window, you don't see any collision for this door. And then we can add a simple box collision here. Go to the details panel and you can search for the collision. As you can see, you can change the collision size by changing the extent value. So in this case, I will change the extent value of X. Lastly, we can go back to the level and test it again. You can see if we interact with the door, it will reach the breakpoint, and then the door is opened correctly and closed correctly. Step 6. Actor component. Right now, all of the logic already implemented inside our project. The input action, the line trace, the interface call, and the door logic. They are all working fine, but what if we want to reuse this interaction system in a third-person project or other project? So, to make this system modular and reusable, we will pack our logic into an actor component. We're gonna back to the editor and create an actor component for our interaction system. First, we can go back to the blueprint folder and create a new actor component, rename it as BPC interaction component. Double click and open it. We can go back to the first person character blueprint, and then we copy all of the interaction logic from this blueprint into our new actor component blueprint. And you can see we will lose some variable, but don't worry, we will recreate it. So right click and then create a new variable, and then we can rename this variable as a camera ref. And then we're gonna recreate the variable for the LineTrace learns, but this one will keep the same. Next, I will add a new customer event and rename it try interaction. I will connect the try interaction event with the interaction logic. And then I will create another one customer event and rename it initialize component. For this initialize component event, I will only do some setup for the component. So in this case, I will set up the camera ref and the line trace lens. Every time we need to use this component, we need to call this event before we try the interaction. Now we can go back to the first person character, and then we can delete all of the logic that we created before. Then we need to add the event begin play to set up our component. So go back to the component window and then search for BPC interact component. After we add it, we drag this out, and then we can search the initialize component. So we can connect with the begin play, and then we can go to the variable section and provide some input for the initialize component. So the next one, we will drag the interaction component again, and then find the try interact function and connect with the interact action. Now we can back to the level and hit play. As you can see, we try to interact with some actor, and everything is worked the same as before. So which means the actor component is implemented successfully. Lastly, if you want to implement this interaction system for the third-person character, what you need to do is import the third-person character template and do the same setting as the first-person character. And after that, you will get everything work. Alright, it is the end of this tutorial. To recap, we set up a line trace to detect objects in the game world. We implement interface for communication between blueprint. We build a base interactable class and extend functionality through a child actor. And lastly, we create an interaction component as a central controller for all the interactions. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you next time.